Well, all right, all right, all right, all right. I hope everybody's got their snacks, their popcorn, their chips, their fucking whatever it is that you want to eat. Because it's one of those good days, right? One of those good days where the Diablo 4 dev team shares some of what's going to come in the future. It's one of those good days. We're about to watch the Season 4 Loot Reborn Developer Insights video that's going to last an hour and a half. Probably actually a little more. Hour and 40 or 45 minutes. Oof. It's going to be a lot then, huh? We got our notes up for our feedback to see what things that we recommended get changed. Hopefully, the plan for the build that I have, for at least for Sorceress, is not going to change too much. But we're going to, realistically, whatever changes occur don't matter for my first playthrough of the season because I'm playing Necromancer and I've yet to play Necromancer other than the original beta. So, let's, shit, we got on the wrong screen. Let's get up in here. Yeah? Let's get up in here. See what they got.
Season 4 is going to be the biggest update we have ever made to Diablo 4 since it has launched.
Our focus on Season 4 is to really make a lot of evergreen updates to the core systems of Diablo 4.
In Season 4, we're ramping the intensity across the seasonal and eternal realms through a collection of new activities aimed at ensuring the moment-to-moment gameplay experience is as exciting and
this screen is kind of
when
shit,
how
man.
it comes to Sanctuary.
I really wish I never would have bought in this fucking
Season 4
dough
item
screen,
changes
which
are
wasn't
some of the
dough
biggest
before. It was
changes we've
some
made to
Spectrum
Diablo
or
4
some
thus
shit.
far.
We've never done anything
It's really
like this.
shitty.
We are fundamentally
It just looks like
changing
dog
how
shit.
you engage with items, how you upgrade them.
Because
and
on my
along the
monitor
way,
at
solving
work,
a lot of things that we've seen
it looks so much
continually
better.
from our community that we agree with are pain points of our existing item system right
and
now.
I know the other
So in
monitor
this
that
new
I have
itemization
connected would
system,
look
we're
even better
focusing
too.
on narrowing down the scope of the base affixes. They're going to be a lot simpler. They're going to be
Or
fewer
maybe
in
it was
number,
just that
so
it
you
was
can
the
much more
stream on
easily
Twitch
parse
was
whether
such
this item
better
is useful
quality
for
than
you.
what they uploaded.
And if it is, then you can take it and further upgrade it and customize it to your own specific build.
Tempering.
Tempering is a new system that allows you to really customize the gear that you find. In order to temper, you will need to go to the blacksmith and then choose the recipe that you wish to temper from, and then a random affix from that recipe will be attached onto your gear. Tempering recipes can be found from almost all of the content throughout Sanctuaries.
So you will actually be looking for tempering recipes.
It did
that
take a while to
go
find them,
directly
though.
with
But
what
I would
you're
imagine by the
envisioning.
time you
Maybe
get to
you're thinking, I'm gonna
100,
play
you're gonna have them
Frost
all.
Sorceress. There are also
If you
going to
don't,
be recipes
that's
that
gonna
are
be
more
shitty.
generic and maybe are just generally good for the sorceress, but
You know?
you'll be able to choose which one you think is going to be most powerful.
Those are other
with the build
random
you're making
things
for
that
your
if you
class.
don't find a good one at the beginning, you're kind of like stuck just playing.
We're making a pretty radical
some kind of
change to
shit
the Codex
build.
of Power in this season, based again on the feedback that has been coming from our players.
Now, every single legendary in the game will be entered into your Codex of Power so that you can continually imprint the best possible version of that legendary onto your gear.
So
We like
going
this.
forward, there will no longer be carrying around all of these aspect crystals in your inventory. It's all going to be in the Codex of Power.
I don't know anybody that saved the crystals. You just save the gear.
So part of the final system that we have
Because you
is
can't do
going to
anything
be
with the crystal
greater
and you lose the
affixes.
fucking materials
What's
of
a
the
greater
gear?
affix? Well, we want to keep it compelling that there are some
you're never
drops
gonna use
that
it
are
again, you
even
can
better than
salvage
the
it.
others when you're trying to get the perfect build at endgame. Because of this, in World Tier 4, and only in World Tier 4, when an ancestral legendary item drops, there's a chance
they didn't add it to the-
affixes on
that's
it can roll
unfortunate.
as greater affixes.
They didn't add it
These
to
will
that little
roll
window in the
with bigger
background. Like,
values
it would
that
be
are normally
nice in
available
the
for
inventory to have that
affix.
star on
Greater
there.
affixes are fairly rare,
It is
but they're
nice
not impossible to find. While
to
leveling
see it
up,
on the
you're going
ground
to be
as
able
well.
to find upgrades much more easily with this new
But
system.
it would be super nice to just add it to that. Like,
Another part of itemization.
those
is
are
going
the
to be
things you're looking
masterwork.
for at a
Now,
certain
this is
point in the
something
game.
really intended
I
for
only
that
want
very
things with
high
greater
end
affixes
game.
because
Again,
all my
World
other
Tier
gear is in
4,
a place where I
this
like
is where
it.
a player is going to take an item, already has
And the only thing that makes it
affixes
better
they
is
want
being
on it,
greater.
but now they go through a process of upgrading those affixes, getting even higher values on them.
Masterworking really starts at level 100. Once you've already completed your build and found some of the best items, you're going to be able to test your build against the powerful enemies of the pit.
The pit is a new endgame system.
Like, I feel it, you could definitely start at 90.
That is going to challenge players that feel that they have largely maximized their build.
By pushing into more difficult tiers of the pit, you're going to be able to unlock rarer crafting materials to masterwork your
I wonder if it
even
only
further.
unlocks at level 100.
You're going to have to play some of the hardest content in the game, but once you do, if you're successful, you can go and make those affixes even stronger.
I mean, it's not that hard.
In Season 4, we're ramping the intensity of the Hell Tides through the
I got to
inclusion of
20
a
and was
variety of new
successful with it.
activities.
Like,
the
I
first
didn't
of which
masterwork
is a
completely
doubling down
everything,
and
but
rise of the cultists' presence throughout the Tide. You're going to
you
be
can definitely
running
make
through
it
the
work
Hell Tide, seeing
from 1 to
the
20.
cultists just conjuring up swarms and swarms of demons, adding to that sense
Hell
of
Tide was
manic
fun,
and
though.
chaos that they're pretty well known for. The other archetype that we're adding is the presence of the Doomsayers, who were unfortunate enough to be caught out in the Tide and basically just lost their minds to all of the mania going on around them. And lastly, rounding out the new activities are just the inclusion of the Iron Wolves. They're finally joining the fight. They could no longer stand in the sidelines, seeing the Hell Tides and Hell's forces intensify their assault on Sanctuary.
About time, boys.
As Season 4
So you're gonna have
players
things that
engage
help
and
you fight.
progress through
Like,
the
how
Call of
much
the
damage
Wolves
do they really
seasonal
do, though?
activity, they'll earn honor with the Iron Wolves, unlocking
They're
access
actually
to a
using
vast
magic, too.
assortment of rewards to accompany and empower your Season 4 journeys.
Gold. Why so much gold, man?
In the updated
That looks
Helltide,
like
for
it's the
players who are able to
the
stay
seasonal
alive
outfit.
long enough, they'll be
It's
paid a
fucking
visit
gold.
by the Hellborn, former heroes of Sanctuary who have aligned with the forces of Hell to attack the allies they once aligned with. Players who are able to take down the Hellborn will be acquiring
gonna kill
the
a lot of them.
materials they need to engage with the new premier Helltide activity, the Accursed Rituals. Located in the
Premier.
Helltide, these
It's
Accursed
premier.
Rituals are pretty much just botched rituals from the cultists that players will be kickstarting for themselves, drawing the attention of all the nearby Helltide monsters in this kind of all-out
Yeah, if they make
battle.
Helltide the same thing as Bloody Harvest,
One of my
which it looks
favorite
like they
things
have,
for these ambushes
great.
is the Hellborn.
and they added a few little
Literally
things to it as
a
well.
giant hell slug beast
That thing
emerges
needs to
from the
not
ground and
fucking
it
push
spews
you
out a
all
whole
over the
bunch of
place
mobs
all the
at you.
time, though.
If you're able to
That thing
survive
is
that,
annoying.
you'll be paid a visit from the Blood Maiden, our brand new Helltide mini-boss and one of the ultimate challenges in the new experience.
So I think I'm actually
One of.
most excited about this season because of what you're able to do with your old characters, how they can integrate with this new item game and take them to new levels of power with this system.
I think that the
Why
best
would
part of
you
this
do that?
update is that you're going to be really empowered to build the character that you want to play.
Why would you
You're
play
gonna be able to
Eternal
pick
Realm?
Custom affixes and enhance your character in a lot of new and interesting
Or
ways.
does it make it? I guess that, well, if they push the Iron Wolves in Eternal as well, like if everything in this season is in both seasonal and Eternal, then it doesn't make a difference what you play other than you play the seasonal to get
All right.
the battle pass stuff.
We were just watching a video and
Literally
everyone
just finger gunning the
Yeah,
screen
just
for no
finger gunning
reason.
the screen,
like-
and everyone's like, "What are you doing, Adam?"
Yeah, okay.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Got a
Welcome
Damage on
to
Tuesday
another
shirt.
Diablo 4 developer update live stream.
Nobody likes
My name is
Damage on
Adam
Tuesdays.
Fletcher. I am the community director here for
Damage
Diablo.
every day of
I'm
the
joined
week,
by this wonderful
Adam.
panel, plus an additional head, which we will call out. But
We only have 4 seats. So
Only
we
have 4
we have to
seats.
swap
So
people
we have
around
to,
as we go.
we have to do the same thing we did during the PTR stream, which was like we swapped out like Joe Shelley and I put in Adam Jackson.
true, we did do
and
that.
So we're gonna play more magic tricks today. But do you guys want to do a quick intro to yourself, to the wonderful Diablo
Colin
community?
Finner is
Sure,
new.
I'm Joe Pipora. I'm the associate game director for Diablo 4.
Lead live
And
game
I'm
designer.
Adam Jackson, the lead live class designer for Diablo 4.
And we have a new face.
Hello, I'm Colin Finer. I'm the lead live game designer.
Awesome. And then we're actually going to be joined by
Who are you?
Derek.
Who are you?
Well, I already introduced myself.
Oh,
you just
sorry.
missed it because
I'm already screwing this up,
I
everybody.
know, terrible.
This is my first
But we actually have Derek who will be joining us as well. Derek, you just saw in the video prior talking about season 4. He'll be swapping in to talk a little bit more about Helltides later in this. But big stream here. We have season 4
Big
coming
stream.
up. As you guys saw earlier this week, it is Loot Reborn for season 4. And a lot of players actually got to experience it a couple weeks ago with PTR. PTR, this was our first Diablo 4 PTR It was a massive undertaking from the team here, but it was really, really great to have players jump in early, check out Season 4 and all the changes, and actually provide feedback. And so we have a lot to cover today based off of feedback that we received from players from PTR itself. So, but Joe, I know you wanted to jump into kind of talking a little bit more about Season 4, how PTR went.
Bro, I'm right on top of Adam.
Yeah, happy to. So, okay, so last time we were on stream, we were actually talking about a lot of the changes that players are going to get a chance to check out on the PTR. So we think that went really, really well. It was even just having the week of time for players to like just jump in and just crush through all of the content, check out all of the
wasn't
features,
enough time.
And gets a lot of feedback, find a lot of bugs on the way as well. Was again super valuable. It's been really, really great for the team. We'll take a lot of these
do that every season.
Feedback,
Why not?
Look at the tuning variety of features and really make sure that we've got the best.
Give yourselves the ability to squash as many bugs and make as many people happy as possible.
You know, in terms of like our big takeaways, first of all, really, really valuable across the board.
It does make for like a month of just like nobody's
mentioned during the
like
PTR
doing a lot in Diablo.
Was really our opportunity to go back and take a lot of the feedback in that we've been looking at since the launch of the game
with 3 characters.
This art is so good.
I do love the key art for this. This key art for Season 3 was awesome as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. So so looking back at the thanks for disrupting my flow.
I'm sorry. David art is amazing.
So yeah, like, you know, looking back at the launch of the product in 2023, you know, we've been getting a lot of really good feedback. You remember back in Season 2, Season of Blood, you know, we made a big change to like vulnerable damage and like the multiplicative damage that comes along with it. We made a change to the way the elemental resist worked. And there were a lot of things we had to do to make those changes like really shine through. There's like a lot of Paragon nodes that had to get updated. There were a lot of like legendary aspects that had to get changed. There was just a lot of itemization stuff in the background that we had to do to make those systems work better and lift up other things around them, like overpower, for example, to make that feel like it was in a better spot. So now that we're looking at like even when we're done that one big release for Season of Blood, we knew that there was a lot more that we wanted to do. Again, we've been thinking about. But there's a lot of work we need to do, like make sure all of these things really all fit together cohesively. So, I mean, as people got a chance to see on the PTR, like the introduction of things like the tempering feature, which we're going to talk a little bit more in a minute, where you get to like introduce these new like affixes into items, and affixes you can't get on items anymore. The reduction affix count on items overall, so it's a lot easier to go and sort through 25 pairs of gloves in your inventory at any given time, where you don't really have those same situations. We reduced the number of items that drop in the game experience overall, but made sure that the items that are dropping are just more valuable and more likely to be upgrades for you, or something you can kind of like build.
Let's hope that's the case, because it's a fucking slog trying to find things that work for because there's so many builds and so many fucking different combinations.
So they introduced the masterworking feature where, you know, players can continually upgrade items and increase the value of the affixes, and then, you know, it ranks 4 and 8 and 12, you get to like kind of crit on one of these and make them even better. You know, there's a lot of things that were introduced. There was we added a new content type in the form of the Pit of the Artificer. It's like this new, like, you know, extremely deep and deadly dungeon dive players get to go into once they get into the like towards the end game, when you're getting to like, you know, 85, 90 for your character level. You're starting to kind of dip into that space, and that's where you go to get your masterworking material.
That's where you're going to start at 85, 90, not at 100.
And we learned a lot of really great lessons from like Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, because we think there was some really cool content there. So there's some really, really fun things there. And then
also the Codex of Power updates. You no longer have to save all your legendaries all the time.
Codex of Power updates, which I was like, to be fair, I've been so excited about the Codex of Power updates. I've been teasing it for like 6 live streams. I feel like it's just not like before BlizzCon. I feel like I teased it at the end of a live stream. So it is what it is. But again, super excited about the Codex of Power changes. That is very transformational. Like now, when Legendary drops on the ground for you, you just
not sad about that.
Get that aspect, put it in your Codex, add the
that helps inventory space for sure.
You just get to use it in perpetuity. And we actually have some fun ways, we'll talk about later, how we're playing with that a little bit as we go. So, I mean, all of this stuff and more, we made huge changes to Helltide. I know Derek will talk about it in a little while. As he
gear that I have that is based on just aspects.
And we got to introduce the season theme in the form of Loot Reborn,
all of it,
and then the reintroduction of the Iron Wolves mercenaries, the players be working with during the course of the release. I know that we showed a little bit of that off earlier. And I am just
also like all items. Like there's no reason to keep any item now.
For us to work with like not just the season team,
they probably don't even work.
And like a lot of support from the systems groups. And there's a lot of things being done for, you know, the expansion, you know, that's coming out eventually as well, like Vessel of Hatred. So being able to like really organize teams and make sure that we're in a really, really good spot to like provide this really big update for the game has been very, very exciting. And the feedback, going back to the feedback from PTR was, again, really, really valuable. It was great to get players in there.
You're welcome.
And to get those things taken care of.
Happy to help.
We're going to talk about some of those things today. I know that some of this
Let's
information
see what you
has been,
listened to.
We talked
you
to like a
ignored
few
completely.
press outlets. We talked to a few different people.
Because
and,
there's
some
no way they're
information's
doing all
getting
of
out
it.
there. But I
No
want to
way.
make sure we can provide a little bit more detail. You know,
It'd be
because I know
nice.
this is the
There's no
audience
way.
wants
They
to
already
know
didn't
the
do
real
one of the
specifics,
things I
and we're going to
wanted.
get into it, right? And we'll also have our Q&A as we usually do at the end. We're going to answer some more questions the community might have as we kind of go through the whole thing. So yeah, I mean that was at a high level. That's what we're feeling about the PTR. Feeling pretty good about it. I'm happy to like maybe jump into itemization, or how do we want to go?
Yeah, I think the first thing we probably want to talk about is like the itemization changes that are in season 4 that people experience, which includes like the tempering, the masterworking stuff that changed in season 4, and of course
We all already
the
know about
feedback
that.
we got from both tempering, masterworking, and what we are planning on
That's what we
doing
wanna hear.
based off of that PTR feedback for the launch of
Yeah,
season
we have
4.
quite a few updates.
Yeah,
So.
lots.
Yeah, sure. So I guess just starting off then with like high level itemization. Like let's go back to like some of the goals that we had when we started like down on this.
Let's go back
for season 4. Now we want to make sure that first players were having an easier time comparing items in their inventory. It's actually one of the first things we started thinking about when we began discussing what we thought needed to change about itemization, because the experience in season 3 and season 2 and other seasons has really been like the player. You know, you'll get into like the you're running your high tier nightmare dungeons. You're getting lots of drops. You know, you're sorting through all of this stuff. Like you'll have like items that are like, you know, this is like a 904 eye power sword, and this is a 909 eye power sword. Now I've got like 6 helmets that all are like or have a wide variety of affixes.
I have that
we really
right now.
Want to, again, just to quickly hit this, we want to make sure that we had
It's
a
fucking
lower number of
painful.
affixes overall that could roll on different.
You spend a lot of time on inventory and
those affixes
not
were
as
more,
much
like,
time in
generically
fighting,
useful and something
which
you
is,
could really build around.
I mean, it's part of
As
the
opposed to
game,
having
right?
lots
But
of really conditional affixes.
it would be
going back
nice
to, like,
if it was
the
less.
damage on Tuesdays joke, you know, like that's like,
The shirt that
we
Mr. Adam
literally
Jackson is
literally wearing it now.
Literally wearing
So
Not as
huge,
funny if you
huge
say it out
proponent.
loud.
It's always funny. So it's obviously because it's a joke, right? Oh, jokes are always funny. But the truth is, like, we want to make sure that where we want to have conditional affixes in the game, we want to find places players would be able to opt into them in a very specific way. You know, so initially want items that you're either really dropping for you to have more generic utility, just more valuable for you overall, and also as a result of this, make it easier to compare those items. Yeah. So one of the changes that we made is we actually reduced the number of affixes that can naturally roll on item slots. So like now, like, you know, a rare item can roll like 2 affixes, a legendary item can roll 3 affixes, but then later on, there's other systems you get to introduce. We'll talk about in a bit. It lets you introduce more of those. Yeah. And we did that, so it's just easier to go through things.
So instead of 4, there's now 5.
Post level 100,
plus an aspect.
So you're no longer comparing like the designer number that's like 904 to 925.
Happy about that.
You're just focusing on what's cool about the item, which is the affixes.
Yeah, which is super important, because there's a lot of situations where like if you're level 100, like Blood Harvest might be a lot of fun, but Blood Harvest is still dropping like eye power 900 items for you. And at that point, why would you want to keep even Blood Harvest, which players really love? Like, why would you want to keep engaging with it if you can't get really good end game items?
Because you don't get
so now when you're like at
opportunity
level 100
to increase your power.
Helltide, or if you're going through Nightmare Dungeons at like a regular, like a slightly lower tier, and you're fighting level 100 monsters or higher, you're always getting eye power 925 items. They might not have all exactly the stats or exactly the rolls that you want, but you're always getting stuff you could actually potentially use.
Yeah, a lot of the things feel a lot better too, like gambling, right? Like now gambling is actually a really great source for targeting item slot, because all of those are 925 at level 100.
That's right. So like the obols that you've been sitting on, where you go and you just churn through a whole bunch of these at once, they didn't have as much generic value. Now they're a lot better, because you really can just like say, I am looking for a helmet, I am looking for a ring, and you can just go roll, you know, 10 eye power 925 rings in a row. And you have stuff to play with.
You can get that from a fucking obol vendor now.
Yeah, those were
That's
some of
nice.
the like the high level changes we wanted to make with items with regards to like making it easier to compare these things. Codex
That's
a lot,
nice.
like, a lot of the inventory concerns.
down with
we
that.
made changes to gems
Because like at a certain point, obels make no sense other than trying to farm for aspects.
So we thought that was really, really good stuff. But then we knew that we wanted to make sure that that it wasn't just about like we weren't going to like add another tier of eye power to items. That wasn't the way to make itemization more interesting for players and rewards more interesting. You know, one of the core things that we really want to focus around was the idea that like items have a journey. The best items have a journey, right? So when you get a really good item, it's about what the potential of that item is. what you can do with this item to make it really superior, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's sort
Definitely.
of to jump into tempering.
Yeah.
One of the first features we had in terms of taking your item on a journey was this idea that we wanted hundreds of different affixes, and each one spoke differently to a build. We wanted you to be able to play sort of whatever class fantasy or build fantasy you had in mind and manifest that through customization of your items. We actually have some video, I think, of what the tempering feature looks like, and I can talk through some of the updates we've made from the PTR. So here you have, we're adding an offensive affix to the item. It's going to land on increased corpse explosion damage. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, especially if you really like corpse explosion. We've added a skip button so you can skip through the flow if you really want to blast through this.
Nice.
We also have a result screen now that shows you exactly what affix it landed on and what the roll range was. And then we have some more exciting affixes that you're going to see here. For example, chance to cast Bone Spear projectiles twice, which I know, Adam, is your favorite. Cause
Oh,
of
yes.
all
I love more
the
projectiles.
The balance bomb we
Don't
dropped
say
in
it
your
like
lap.
that. Everyone
It's
loves
so
projectiles.
great.
It is cool though.
It is pretty cool.
Like being able to like
Oh, Derek is here. So yeah, we did our swap. But Joe's still going to be here off screen. We just want to make sure that Derek appears here. Derek is our lead seasons designer, so he'll be talking a little bit more about Hell Tides later. Sorry to interject. Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Now I'm off screen. So yeah, I think one of the really cool things about the tempering system in general is that like the manuals that we're introducing initially are just like the beginning of what we can do with tempering. It's opportunities to make like really weird and interesting new affixes to kind of throw at the player that we can introduce in seasons or in other updates. So it's something that we can really extend and do some really neat stuff with.
Yeah, we absolutely plan to build on it in the future. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so a bunch of improvements to tempering overall.
And a lot of these, again, these improvements in tempering from the skip animations to the previews and stuff like that players will see were based off of feedback that we actually got from PTR.
But reduction in
so,
material cost.
Again, huge shout out to the community for providing all that feedback for us so that we can actually get that in before the launch of Season 4. So, but with tempering, we also have masterworking, which is another new feature within Season 4 and permanently within Diablo 4 itself. So, talk us through a little bit about what masterworking is, and of course the changes as well that we're going to be seeing based off of PTR feedback.
Sure, yeah. So, the next step in your item's journey is to really take it to new heights. You've customized it, you found some base affixes you're really into, and we wanted to give you a way to essentially take some of these affixes to new levels. So you think about helms and CDR or cooldown reduction, or for example, that chance to replicate, your Bone Spear. We want you to be able to really juice those stats. So I think we have
Juice
a video
them up,
here of
baby.
what that looks like. Overall, what we've really done is taken a look at the feedback. We got a bunch of feedback that it was tedious to upgrade these over and over. So we've removed the animation from ranks 1 through 3.
Nice.
We've kept the critical, upgrade. We have the animation still there, but you can skip it. Again, sort of in the spirit of blasting across everything that we do. So you can do that very quickly. Another piece of feedback that we got was that, part of the masterworking process allows you to reset this. And why do you want to reset this? It's because you want to hit that specific affix you're looking for. You want to juice a specific affix. And sometimes you might miss, right? Which means you want to reset that item.
Yeah.
So part of the resetting sort of requires you to get lower tier materials. You're going to get these from the pit. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But overall, we saw a bunch of feedback that it was really tedious to create like 1,000 caches and open up them in town like 100 times, right? It's super annoying. The town is lava. We want to address that. So, we've added multiple scales of material conversion to those caches. This is a short-term solution. We have something in the future planned. It's just not ready yet. So, while it's not the perfect solution, it does get you there a little bit quicker. There's multiple conversion rates of materials, so you can turn, one legendary material into a much higher count of materials based on the tiers that we have in the crafting system. So again, not the perfect solution. We have something coming.
But better than having to go into a level 20 in order to level up
so yeah, a lot
from
of
1 to 3 or whatever
changes
it is.
coming for masterworking based off of feedback.
1 to 4.
Masterworking, of course, being a brand new, kind of that end tail of
Because then you can
that
continue
item
to
journey that
increase
you'll
your
have
pit
even,
level instead
even
of
after
like
tempering
going back
stuff
and
like
doing
that. So,
or level
I
20s,
think another
which
thing
is
that was brought up this year was
stupid.
about veiled crystals, right? Didn't we reduce the
Yeah.
amount that you need
Yeah,
for crafting?
we did, and I can totally talk about some of the stuff we've done just overall on itemization.
Yeah.
Veiled crystals is one of those things. Yeah, so I'll talk about, first I want to touch on rare and magic items. That was something we made a change from Season 3 and Season 4. Legendary items are just generally straight up better than rare items now. And part of our goal there is really to ensure that players aren't sifting through sand, looking through thousands of items. We want to just call it out, like legendary items are legendary. At the same time, we acknowledge that, like, you know, there is some coolness to knowing that certain magic and rare items could have value to you, right? We don't have anything for Season 4 yet, but the design team is definitely talking about ways that we can bring this rarity back in a way
That means
doesn't
yellow and blue
diminish
still
our
drop,
overall
and you
goal
still
of
get a
trying to
fucking
reduce that sort of sifting through sand feeling, right?
sip
So
through
in the
'em.
meantime, you know, they can be salvaged. They still have a use in the end game. But we heard a ton of feedback, to your point, Adam, on the veiled crystals. It's just like such a bottleneck, and it's like, God damn it, I have to pick a bunch of like yellow items up to do any of the cool crafting features. What the hell, Blizzard?
That's an actual player quote too.
Yeah,
Yes.
I hate
I'm very
veiled
sure it
crystals.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we've done is we've made it so that legendaries break down into equal amounts of veiled crystals, so you can just
Good.
not pick up yellow items. It's just a bonus now. We've also made sacred and ancestral items break down into 2 and 3 amounts of salvage. So sacred items will break down into double, ancestral will break down in triple. So we're effectively tripling the output of a lot of the salvage here.
And I know, so
That's good.
One, that was probably the most vocal feedback that we got from
Yeah.
players. About,
Maybe
like,
a little bit.
Yeah, of like, I
Tuning,
need
you
more
know.
veil crystals. So I know that
Yeah.
there's changes coming for that in Season 4 based off that PTR feedback. Another, probably maybe the second, maybe also the first topmost our largest feedback piece that we got is around greater affixes and the visibility related to those.
Oh.
So there are changes going into that for Season 4. So Colin, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we wanted, you know, the dopamine. That was a big goal.
That is
also
not
of
the-
part of,
the biggest thing.
itemization is just like
That's
seeing
like-
an item hit the ground and just being like, oh, I like that jackpot
Second or
moment.
third.
Right? So,
Biggest thing is failure
so
and
we actually have
masterworking.
some video here to show of what that actually looks like on the ground. So you can see here's the
That's a nice
weirdly
change.
long named item with the
picked a
greater
good one for
affix.
that, yeah.
They did put it on there.
Unyielding
Fucking right.
commander's
Good
sacrificial
job,
sickle.
guys.
I know, right?
Does it show how many it has?
So we have a 1 greater affix star. It'll go up to 3 or 4. if it's
Nice,
a unique item, which
nice,
always feels
nice,
incredible.
nice.
So
Good
it
job,
shows up on the
boys.
ground
Good
when
job.
it lands. And then if we can go to the
Good
next
job.
video, we actually have an indicator now when it is in the inventory.
Yeah, so you can see
What
it.
is
Zoom.
Saturated
Enhance.
Right.
I asked
job.
this as a joke, and it looks so good. I'm so happy.
I'm disappointed. I can't see like the pixels. It's not zoomed in. So that's been enormously helpful and really, you know, when you kill like Duriel or one of these tormented bosses and they drop a
Yeah,
ton of
because
loot
that's
on the
what you're
ground to
looking
see
for
some
upgrades.
of these
Everything
half
else you
stars on
salvage
them,
it, but
it
that
just,
that's
it
what you
feels great
fucking look
moment.
at.
Yeah.
Kind
and
of goes with the whole like not sifting through the sands. You clearly see
Yeah.
that icon. You know that has
Yes.
value.
You
to
want to
you.
know what's valuable. though,
Exactly,
something that
especially
really
Yes.
and again, even on the icon itself, like in your inventory, you'll immediately know those are my greater affix items. And long gone are the days of the Roman numeral. We
Right. You didn't like that? You didn't like
we
the
will.
designer
We will
solution?
miss it. It's funny.
Right.
I think internally we knew like, oh, that's probably going to get changed. We had a few jokes about that, but
Sure.
I know.
One thing I want to touch on real quick before I move on the itemization, if that's okay,
Yep.
is we actually, to touch on the veiled crystals, I think players are going to want to know this, is we reduced the imprinting cost of aspects quite a bit. So
Great.
that's really going to help the veiled crystals as well. I think it went from like 75 veiled crystals to imprint on an ancestral armor to 16. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
huge.
pretty
Good.
huge swing. Just getting
75
way
is
more of your
ridiculous.
aspects on gear. It's a lot more flexible. So that
Yeah, we
should be-
really want people to feel like, and this is kind of the Codex of Power updates in general, which I'm really pumped about, is we want you to feel like you're able to re-imprint those aspects.
Yeah.
And that
Good.
it's something that you're not
Good.
having a huge cost and huge barriers to doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Good.
Because as you upgrade your
wanna
gear,
make
that should be
changes
part of your process is like putting on
to
your favorite
test shit
affixes.
out. Good.
Yeah. So
Very nice.
A lot of changes coming with tempering, masterworking, itemization, and I know. Did we have any other changes that you wanted to cover before we move on to the next section? And
yeah, you
Colin's
do.
got this novel in front of him, and he's like, "What am I going to
He was
do?"
a keep rebel all the are changes. Oh, one I would think is worth mentioning, Colin, you may want to talk about, is the master working. I remember we got a lot of feedback about the fail chance.
Oh, that's a great
that's
point.
true. The fail chance we took.
Yeah.
Funny
that's
enough,
number
that was, like,
one.
probably the biggest thing changed.
That is number one.
Yeah.
That is number
was
one.
the first bullet, and I somehow missed it. Yeah. So we definitely felt like there's a ton of feedback that the double random chance was just a little bit too much, and we agreed. So we just took it out.
Yep.
It's just fun now. Just upgrade the item. We adjusted the material costs a bit, but the fail chance is no longer there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Very
Cool.
much.
Well, thank you,
3
Colin, for going
things
through
that
those changes. We'll actually
will-
be back to Colin here later.
We'll
because
make
he still has
massive
more
fucking,
to talk about from his
like,
novel.
massive
papers that he has.
difference
Joe, you wanna swap
in
now?
the enjoyability of playing the
But
game.
we did want to jump
Good
into
job.
some of the class
Good
balance
fucking
changes
job.
that are coming after PTR, of course, with season
Everything
4.
after this?
We have a lot
Like-
of class balance changes
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
on
Okay,
top
let's
of
hear
all
it.
these
It's great.
itemization changes.
I already know it's great.
And we
I
got
don't
a
care
lot of
if
great
anything
feedback
changes.
from players. So, Mr. Adam,
Then
very
those
much
3
did.
things.
Yeah.
let's run through this.
They're
Yeah,
the most
so,
fucking important.
basic-
Those
The
3 things
classic
are the
Adam
most
Jackson
important.
slides,
Yes, I love my slides. We have kind of 3 categories of things that I'm going to be talking about today. Again, thanks to everybody for playing on the PTR. We did get a ton of feedback. I'm not going to go over the specifics of everything that changed, but I'm going to go over kind of the categories of things just because there's a whole lot of changes. One of the first big ones was endgame survivability issues. So this is kind of talking about those people that went really far into the pit, and this is kind of something that's been happening on live as well that we wanted to address.
Yeah, it's happening
And
in
there's
the
this
game
phenomenon
since
when
it
you
was
get
launched.
really deep into the game and you're fighting high-level monsters where, you'll hit a point where the monsters are kind of easy and you're able to blow through with your really powerful builds, and then you kind of get to a point where they start one-shotting you. And it can be kind of mysterious and hard to understand, like, what's going on, why did this happen?
Yeah.
We've also had
Very.
some issues balancing that kind of top-end survivability when you get to those hard monsters in the game. One of the reasons for this is that variability in player defensiveness has been really high traditionally.
If you don't
This
know
is
what
why
the
when you
threshold
look
is
at the
to
new
avoid a
items in the
one
game
shot,
in Season 4,
you can't be prepared for
you
it.
don't see a damage reduction very much at all. It's
Nobody
a very
knows.
premium stat now that's really hard to get. And it's to help solve this problem of when someone is stacking all damage reduction versus someone who has none of it, their difference in effective health and survivability is really, really high. And so it makes it hard to balance the game. Another part that we wanted to hit was really armor. That armor is kind of a really confusing stat. It's not really well understood how it works. And I'm going to be going over in a little bit how it works and what we're changing to kind of address both of these issues a little bit.
Great.
Next is that some stats can get really high. We added all these crazy awesome stats, and you can juice them with masterworking and crit them and all these things. And it allowed for some really crazy things on the PTR, which people love to post constantly.
Yeah,
at
the
me.
fucking
And
Dust Devils is
to be
stupid,
clear,
man.
we like
It
crazy
bricks
things,
everybody's computer when there's
it's
a
awesome
bar
to get
with
powerful and have that fantasy.
billions of
You do
Dust
have to take
Devils
into
covering
account
the
things
screen.
like combat
Plus, you can't even
clarity
see
and
anything.
computer performance to make
Yeah.
sure that the game can still run very well for everybody. So we made some changes there to address that.
Tune that shit
You
down.
mean it's not fun to just not see the screen or the ground?
I think it is for a little while. Like, it is hilarious, I think.
Yeah, it's fun for
funny
like
a
5
bit,
minutes.
But when you can only see like patches of ground occasionally.
And when one
Stupid.
player can do that, let alone when you get 4 of them in a group,
That's true,
I
yeah.
think it's great. And last but not least, balance changes and bug fixes. I'll be going over some of them, but there's way more than what I'm covering right now today. But just know, we took a lot of feedback on balance, a lot of feedback on bugs. There were a lot of them that were reported, and we acted on a lot of them, and I'll give an example of some that we did. All right, so let's go into armor. So, brief history, listener description of how armor works today. This is like when you log in, how armor is functioning. It's your stat for physical damage mitigation. So you know how you have your elemental resistance that caps at 75 and then can get pushed up a little bit? Armor
Caps at
reduces
70,
your
bro.
physical resistance up to a cap of 85%. It can't go higher than that. That's the number. But what's confusing is the amount of armor that you need to get to that 85% cap is actually based on the level of the monster that you're fighting. And I gave some examples here. These are the actual numbers in the game. So if you have a level 50 monster that's hitting you, whacking you, then you need 5,265 armor, and then you'll be at that 85% cap. But then at level 100, at every level, like 51, 52, 53, it's good. That number is going up with what you need. And at level 100, it's about 9,230. And then at level 150 monster, it gets close to 13,000, right? And so what this ends up, kind of creating is that the player really never knows when they're done with armor, right? That number can scale up forever. It's kind of a hidden system under the hood. So when you're fighting these monsters and they get way higher level than you as you scale into the pit or nightmare dungeons or whatever, you don't really know how much you need. And so this is kind of really contributing to that phenomenon where you're fine, you're at the cap, and then the higher level monsters just start one-shotting you. So in Season 4, a lot of it's going to be the same as Season 3. It's still going to be your source of physical damage mitigation. The cap is still going to be 85%. And you're still going to need escalating amounts of armor as the monster level gets higher. But what we're changing here, if we go forward a little bit, is that armor is now going to cap at that level 100 monster number. So that 9,230, you can write down this number.
Okay.
We're also going to later get into the tooltip.
You don't need Juggernaut
We couldn't get it
anymore
in for the launch of Season 4, but we'll have it soon after. But it's kind of going to be like elemental resistance, where you get to this number, and then you're kind of done with the system, right? So armor is just another thing on your checkbox of things you want to do as far as defensive survivability, and once you get it, you're done. You can get it from gear, legendary aspects, and so on. Particularly in Season 4, I think this will be a little bit of an easy number to hit. We're not trying to make this super difficult or hard to do. It'll be very achievable for you. When
I already
you're
have
level
6 at
100 player.
82.
So here we have a zoom in on the tooltips.
I don't have anything that's even
this
remotely
player
close
has,
to 900.
way above
let
that
alone
9,000 amount of
925.
armor that they need. They have close to 16,000. But you can see there, that it's
I think
capped
I only
out
have
at that
one
85% physical resistance.
total armor
And again,
percent.
soon after the launch of Season 4, we're going to actually put the cap that you need of the number that you're chasing, because we want you to know what the goal is that you're trying to hit.
So that means they have a lot of room for optimization, right?
Correct. Yeah. This
sacrificing.
means that this player can actually give up armor on some of their, tempering or item affixes and look for other stats. Like, that's kind of the point.
Perfect.
So next, stat caps. So, now that we've introduced a lot of ways to get really high amounts of stats in the game, we want to kind of control for visual clarity, what a player can put onto their screen. So kind of similar to some caps we have already in the game, like attack speed or elemental resistance. We're putting some caps on cooldown reduction and the increased area size. It's really fun to get those giant frost novas that cover the screen, but when it goes like 2 or 3 screens away, it can get really noisy and messy. So we still want these stats to be really powerful and impactful, but just control a little bit the amount of insanity that they can bring. And one thing on this cooldown reduction cap, to be clear, this is not just CDR across the entire game. This is just capping what you can get from gear. So this is like the base cooldown reduction you get when you first cast a skill, what it's going to be. You can still get cooldown resets or additional cooldown effects from things like the skill tree or legendary powers that just reduce the cooldown of your skills as you do certain mechanics. This is just like the baseline cap that comes from your gear.
I think when we looked at the cap for area effect,
So it can go
we
higher than
tested it
75
on Frost Nova, and we were like pretty meticulous on what that cap should be, and it was still massive.
No,
like
it's
100%,
huge. Yeah. When I say like we're making a cap, you're still going to get to insanity when it comes to what's on your screen. It's still going to be awesome. So you can see here, this is just showing you what the tooltip looks like now. So we're going to be showing you, as a player, what those caps are, so when you're evaluating your gear on your tooltips, what it is. And then same thing here. You can see here, like the dust level area effect size bonus, it caps at 100%. Next, balance updates. So again, like I mentioned before, we made a lot of balance changes based on feedback. Again,
Fewer
thank
fractured
you for
winter
playing and
glass
giving us all
frozen
that feedback.
orbs.
I'm going to go over some of the things. One of the bigger categories of things was, again, like I mentioned, those changes due to combat readability and balancing player power. A few examples here of things that we're reducing are like the amount of dust levels that can be on your screen, and fractured winter glass, one of my new favorite uniques we're bringing in. The amount of frozen orbs that could span the screen is going to be reduced a bit, so I want to prepare you all for that. Again, to be clear, you're still going to spawn a whole lot. It's just not going to be like insane amounts where you can't see things anymore. They're still going to be very powerful.
I never even found a fractured winter glass in the whole week I was playing. Not a single one.
Some other
And
things
that's what I
we're
wanted to
doing,
play.
Fortify. We wanted to
booked.
increase the amount of damage reduction that you get. This is just Fortify across the board, the base mechanic. That DR is going from 10 to 15%.
That's nice.
And this was because before, when it was at 10%, we had to take into account that players could get damage reduction from a million different sources throughout the game. Now that it's more rare and more premium, we can actually make this mechanic in the game a little bit more impactful and feel like you're a tankier player.
Fortify is even better then.
These kinds of builds. We also made a lot of tempering affix updates. I'm not going to go into detail them, but just know like what you saw in PTR and what's going to ship. You're going to see a lot of improvements, a lot of balance changes.
Good.
Even some shuffling around of the affixes to make them.
There was a bunch of stuff in
ways
places that
more
didn't make sense, and
based on feedback. And then we did do some class
some
changes
that
as
had
well.
like
Only gonna give
5,
very few
and then
examples
some
here,
had
but just
3.
know that there
Like
were,
what the fuck?
quite a few.
There should be
One is
there
druid
should be only
players,
3 on every single
companion
one.
druid players
No
always
more than
harass
4,
me. They
'cause
want that
4 is
build to
even
work, and I
bullshit.
agree. It's really cool. So we increased the health of druid wolves by 200%, and we also reduced the respawn rate and cut it in half. So, we got feedback basically that, their companions were really good and fun and did damage, but in the late game, they just kind of died and couldn't survive. So we're doing this to kind of address that feedback. All right, so here's Dust Devils as an example. So you can see on the left, this is just one barbarian by themselves, the amount of Dust Devils that they could produce, right? And then on the right, you can see kind of the same barbarian. You can see, like, the Dust Devils around the areas where the enemies are, they're still getting hit by a ton of them,
screen.
but it's not covering the entire screen, right? And especially when you get like 3,
there's only
4,
one.
many players together, it really becomes
When there's
insanity.
10 at a world boss,
when you're in
it's still going to
party
cover the whole
of more
screen.
barbs or
Yeah.
it's just like everyone's a barb and I don't know where I'm walking.
Yeah, and other classes can do that kind of thing too, not just barb, but this was kind of a good example. So, this is kind of seeing the difference between PTR and live. And then next we have another class change, so Scoundrel's Kiss. This is another one of our new uniques that rogue players gave us a lot of feedback on. So a quick summary of how this new unique works is it kind of changes your rapid fire skill from shooting straight and hitting a single enemy into kind of a mortar skill where you shoot up into the air and then your arrows fall on the ground and explode. It's really, really cool, but one of the pieces of feedback we got was that when you launched the arrows, they would kind of go in a line and they wouldn't all hit the same enemy anymore. So if you were trying to do single target damage, it could actually be a nerf unless you like walked right up to the enemies and shotgunned them.
Yeah.
And while there was a way to play around it, players weren't really happy that like we transformed the skill so much that it went from a ranged skill to kind of a melee skill. So we made an update here and we have a video of the before and after. But basically, you can see on the PTR on the left here how, it goes in a big line and then the player has to run right next to the target dummy to do the full damage to it. And on the right now, you'll see basically you target where those arrows are going to drop and they just all go to that area. So you can hit a single enemy, but you'll also hit all the enemies around it because the arrows explode. So it should be a lot more usable compared to before.
Can Scoundrels
That would be
Kiss
fun, but I'm not going to play it.
ricochet with my rapid fire?
I'm pretty sure, yes, it can. So it does all the things and inherits all the things that your rapid fire does.
That's very cool.
It's
But
gonna be pretty
can
cool.
it double projectile?
I'm pretty sure it can, just like everything else. Yes.
Yes.
Spam everywhere.
Yes.
We love spam. And last but not least, bug fixes. Like I mentioned before, there were a whole lot of bug fixes reported to us. Thank you all for getting them. We addressed pretty much every single one that was reported. I'm giving some examples here, but again, we got a lot more than what I'm showing on the screen. One was Druid's Hurricane was incorrectly scaling damage basically infinitely, so we fixed that. Ebon Piercer, the extra missiles from our new unique, they incorrectly had a 100% lucky hit chance, which is proccing a lot of crazy stuff. And then Flame Weaver, another one of the new things we introduced to the game. It's basically an effect where you can put a firewall on the ground and then you shoot firebolts through it and it'll split the firebolts. Really cool fantasy. But what happened in the PTR was you could stack a bunch of firewalls right on top of each other and they would split the firebolts multiplicatively and add more and more, way more than intended. So you could fire a ridiculous number of firebolts, which were crashing servers and things. So it wasn't great. But now we fixed that so it'll work properly. And again, we're still discovering and working on other fixes. There were a lot more that went in. If you reported it, it was very likely fixed.
Man,
so basically,
there's fucking
the
weirdos
build
here.
will be in a much better
I'll be right back.
state once we launch. And that's really due to all your feedback.
Fucking hate when people knock on my door. I hate it. It's a no soliciting fucking neighborhood. I'll be right back. 2 random fucking weirdos were knocking on my door.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's my section.
A lot of changes coming to classes. Class balance
they left.
feedback we got from
So
PTR
great.
was really
Get the fuck
great.
out of here.
You know,
I don't want anything from
able
you.
to make so many.
I have
different,
everything I need.
changes there,
If
of
I need
course.
anything, I'll go get
Some
it.
of the biggest ones like
I don't
the
need anything from
readability
some
stuff that
random fucking
we
dude.
probably saw. I seen the initial videos of like the dust devils everywhere. Was crazy. Also being in a party with like I was playing PTR and being in a party with like two barbs and like another like necromancer. I was like, oh okay, like what's going on right now?
Yeah. PTR is one of those things you get to see things in development state. I will say these kinds of things are actually pretty common when we're developing anything. Is being able to create these crazy situations, and we have to fix it for the game before it goes live. So that's kind of the advantage of PTR is players can find these things. There's a lot more manpower being put into it.
PTR was super great for us to have, and
You're
thanks
welcome.
again to the community.
I was
for the
happy to
feedback
help.
on all the class balance changes, and thanks Adam for walking us through that. The next thing we do want to talk about is with Derek over here. Derek is actually going to talk a little bit about, of course, all the immense Helltide changes. Probably one of the most popular features and changes that we've introduced in Season 4 with PTR and people being able to experience it. Of course, we got feedback based off of players jumping into Helltide, and we do want to go through all that with Derek. And then we also want to talk a little bit about the season itself with Derek. So, Derek, want to jump in?
Yeah, just a few things to cover. So as you mentioned, the players who joined us when the PTR or caught all the various like blog and video posts and whatnot know that with Season 4, we're introducing permanent upgrades to the Helltide experience. Heavy focus on improving and enhancing, I guess, monster density and activity variety. So there's ton more things to do in the Helltides, and as a result, there's just ton more monsters to mow through in the Helltides. There's also some explorations, and we'll double back real quick. These are all permanent across both the seasonal and eternal realms, so they're not going away once Season 4 ends. This is just how Helltide
part of the
works.
game.
Yep.
Kind of like our item updates too, right?
Yeah,
This
now and
is the
forever.
new world we live in.
Yeah, this is.
Why is their
sanctuary.
video lagging?
But there's also, if you kind of look at the top right of the screen, the threat system. So the longer you're fighting in the tides, you're going to be accumulating threat, which just results in even more monsters ambushing you at higher frequencies than monster packs. I think the personal favorite, and think like fan favorite, is the Hellworm. This giant demon slug bug that just pops out from the ground and just vomits monsters all over you. But kind of with all those, the seasons, as we say a lot, are an amazing opportunity for experimentation. And sometimes the best results of those experimentations are when they can inspire permanent upgrades and just enhancements to the base game as a whole. So that's where the Hellborn and the new Accursed Ritual and Blood Maiden come into play as part of the new Helltide experience. Yeah, look at those. Those look rad. So
Those
the
are
Hellborn, as our Season 2 players might recall, we introduced the Bloodseekers. And those were really cool monsters based on class archetypes. So you're kind of like fighting vampiric shadow versions of yourself. And we take a look at that content, and we just love it from the team perspective, and just find hey, we're upgrading the Helltides. This is a perfect piece of content to just include with it. So that's where the Hellborn came into play. They're fallen heroes of Sanctuary. They've been overtaken by the corruption from hell and kind of turned against you. Kind of in line with that, the Accursed Ritual and the Blood Maiden. In Season 2, with the Bloodlures and the Bloodseekers, we introduced this concept of, I guess, calling it just open world social boss summoning. We followed up with there's a buzz right there.
It's very, very catchy.
Rolls right off the tongue. I love it.
Again, to my designer speak sometimes, but and we followed that up with the Malthus spawners in Season 3, and again, looking at these really successful experimentations from previous seasons, we love opportunities to bring players together and just add that extra layer to the Helltide experience. So that's where the Accursed Ritual comes into play. So as you're out fighting against the tides, you'll be collecting the new material, the Baneful Hearts, that you can bring to the Accursed Ritual. It takes 3 to summon up the Blood Maiden, and you can do this by yourself, or you can partner up with some buddies and all, I guess, contribute to the summoning together. And the Blood Maiden itself is our new Helltide mini-boss, that she's immensely powerful, but also very, very lucrative. And I think the last thing forgot to mention is that this is all expanding into World Tiers 1 and 2 as well, and kind of like a distilled, not diluted. So the Helltide in World Tier 1 and 2 is more specifically tuned to, I guess, meet the leveling needs, or the needs of the leveling player.
Awesome.
Oh, on the Blood Maiden, I remember you had talked about with me before that the people that summon the Blood Maiden actually get bonus loot drops, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can either contribute just by yourself to the Blood Maiden and get some extra loot for your troubles. We want to make sure that we give you a little bit extra because you're sacrificing up your hearts. But also, every player that it doesn't stack, so you're not stressed to say, hey, I just need to be the one that summons them all. We can all party up and just deposit our own baneful hearts and I guess reap the benefits of that.
Yeah. Right. To be clear, so if you put in all three, you get bonus loot, right?
Correct.
But like you, me, and Colin are in a group, and like I put in 2 and you put in 1. Do I get more loot than you?
No. So you get the same amount of loot. So if Colin has a baneful heart to deposit, if we all dump them in together, then we all get the shared benefits of that.
Got it.
But I will touch on a bit later
But there's
the
4
PTR
people in a group,
updates
but there's
and
only
just some
3
of the
hearts required.
enhanced value that the Blood Maiden received since PTR for both contributors and non-contributors to the summit.
Awesome. Yeah, so a lot of new stuff coming in for Helltide, and this is all part of the stuff that players got to experience in the PTR. And of course, we got learnings from the PTR, as you just mentioned.
Many.
Do you wanna walk us through some of the changes that are coming in with Helltide for all the PTR feedback that we have?
Yeah, I think I have a PowerPoint of my own. Let's see. There you go. Look at that. Yeah. So, as mentioned, tons of sweeping changes going into the Helltides and just overall balance of the game in general in Season 4. And kind of with that, sometimes, we push a little bit too far in some regards. So we did get feedback and also just own internal kind of field checks on the Cinder drop rates were feeling a bit slow in the PTR. So we just went back, reviewed it, and gathered our feedback and just iterated on the drop percentage to hit closer to the expectations of how much we want to be collecting the cinders and interacting with the tortured gifts. So I think we're in a much better spot. I know we're in a much better spot right now, actually. So that was one of the first major pieces coming out from the PTR.
A lot more chests from this, yeah?
Yeah, chests, more loot, more fun.
Awesome.
Let's see, next one. Yeah, so on the topic of more is more fun, the Baneful Hearts, we were noticing that they were dropping a bit inconsistently. So you can get the Baneful Hearts from opening tortured gifts, killing the Hellborn, and one of the Doomsayer variants, one of our new activity types. But again, we want to get the Baneful Hearts in the hands of the players with a pretty steady cadence. So we noticed with the PTR that we're just not getting them
if
as
they're
frequently
a
as we
good
wanted to.
source of
So we just
improving your
went
items,
back, iterated, and kind of reviewed our bad luck
then why
protection
not?
to just ensure that we
Let's do those more
improve the
often, 'cause they're
consistency
pretty
that
fun
Baneful
fights.
Hearts
They're
are
not
dropping.
easy.
And this is all kind of like
especially when you're
Blood
lower
Maiden is
level
not
gear.
meant to be seen as like this highly
But they're not,
ambitious
like,
piece of
impossible
content that you
either,
only
so-
engage with like once every 50 levels. We want you getting the hearts. We want you engaging with the social boss summoning mechanic, and I think it just adds that extra layer.
Because
to
those
the
maidens
Helltide
hit hard,
dimension.
and they have a lot of life, health, whatever.
And on the topic of the Blood Maiden, overall, like we touched on earlier, the Blood Maiden is just seeing some overall rewards improvements. So, as noticed, or as mentioned before, if you contribute to the summon of the Blood Maiden, you receive a bonus reward. But one of the things was that you couldn't really tell. There is a little icon that appears like where your buff bar, but the effects of that was largely unnoticed from both the team and actually just the PTR players themselves. So again, taking this opportunity to just review the overall value of the Blood Maiden for contributors and non-contributors alike, because
Zero
again,
materials.
we wanted to make sure that she has a clear role in the Helltide experience. So, again, overall, Blood Maiden is just overall more valuable. With this, we're dropping things like legendaries, Forgotten Soul,
There needs to
Lore
be a
Zero
secondary
Mats, and a
source
%
of
chance
getting,
for contributors at the end world tiers.
Beast and ice
to,
materials too, though.
Get some end game boss materials as well.
Yeah, so this
Because
is now
Zir is the hardest one
an
to get.
additional opportunity for players to get additional of the boss mats for the boss ladders.
Yeah.
Which we've heard a lot of how players were like, hey, we only really have one kind of method to get them, and we wanted to expand that.
Yeah,
and
that was
bring
my
that
problem
into
with getting the
more
fractured
avenues
winter
so
glass.
players
I
didn't have to
couldn't
just
get
kind of be,
it
like,
because
tunneled off into
like I
one
only
area to
I did
get
7
specific boss
Zirs maybe, and
Yeah,
I was
variety of the
fucking
spice of
farming
life.
my ass off for that
I like
blood.
that the contribution encourages
I didn't
you
get a
to
single
actually
one in
use
07.
these. In season 2, I just chain summon the boss over and over and over, and there would be this awkward dance where someone would show up, and it's like, I know
Waiting.
you have.
Yeah, the waiting game. Like,
Use your
to do it.
material.
Yeah, and that's why
so.
it's really also important that the the nuance is not. Nuance is honestly lost pretty frequently when we're talking about like drops for different kinds of creatures in different sorts of situations like this. Like Treasure Goblin. We talked about Treasure Goblin a while ago, a few seasons ago, and I remember I put a poll out on X.com.
So
at one
weird
point,
to say.
basically, I know. So I put a poll out basically asking players what they believed the legendary drop rate of Treasure Goblins to be, and I had a whole bunch of options, and I think like 85% of the players were wrong. And because the drop rate at that time was 50%, players didn't feel it because they didn't see the Treasure Goblin enough to really notice that it was actually that high. So I think making sure that like we're like buffing up those moments where like if I have my contribution bonus a little bit higher, that helps make sure that that is felt.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what's funny is Joe talking off screen and we're all looking off and people are just staring us stare into this random corner and stuff. You know what would be funny is if we all just actually looked back there at Bale. We should play
every time.
Yeah,
Like,
every time.
Joe.
And like Joe's turned into Bale.
Literally coming
Oh,
in the corner.
wow.
That's awkward.
That wasn't part of the plan.
I like the deep shadows.
That's where he is.
He's just lurking. Oh man.
I guess the moments when I decide to say something, maybe they'll occasionally.
I was like, oh, we have another camera. Awesome. Cool. So a lot of Helltide changes that we have coming into.
Yeah, I think there's actually one more slide.
I'm pretty sure we have one more.
So one thing that we've kind of covered a lot across like just tempering and just the masterwork and just the spirit of season 4 in general, just like
Explode into the
removing friction
premium
points and just
directly.
keeping players in the flow, the flow of fun.
People want to
really.
blast.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the Doomsayer variants, and again, like the Doomsayer's new activity type, it's kind of like a Kinder Egg surprise where you interact with them, they crackle and pop into something, a variety of things actually. So one of the variants that we had was the Chest of Doomsaying, where they would explode into a tortured gift that costs 50 cinders and gives you a whole lot of good stuff. We're kind of reviewing that, and sometimes what can happen is you can encounter one of these at the very start of your Helltide run, and you don't have 50 cinders. It's not a lot to get, but it still is kind of a stressful, potentially feels bad
Sucks
moment.
missing out on that.
We just
Like,
said, hey,
running
let's just
into a
have it
secret-
explode into the loot directly.
A secret
save
chest.
50 cinders, and you kind of
and
just
you
keep
don't have
going
any
on your
keys.
merry way in the tides. So that's one of the kind of like efficiency smoothing outs that we've done. The next one is also just we're dumping a whole bunch of monsters on you, and it's always a feel bad moment when you get knocked out of an interaction. You're trying just to open up the tortured gift.
You
and,
can't even
head out.
fucking
So
teleport.
we reduced the channel time to open tortured gifts from 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds, I believe, for
There's so many
season
monsters in
4
a
launch
Helltide
proper.
and PTR that you couldn't even teleport out.
A lot. So then I think
They
about
just
some
kept
feedback
coming.
are like, why don't we
Coming.
just make it instant?
And
right?
coming.
Right. Yeah, we kind of do want to safeguard against like the accidental clicks. Again,
Yeah.
it's a frenetic game, so you're clicking a whole bunch, and I think 1.5 seconds is enough time to let you make sure that that's what you want to commit to before you open it.
And there's also like because you guys can talk about this. There's changes to like the channeling. Like I think with like dot damage and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Dot damage now will interrupt channeling as well. Which is a pretty
Which is good. So especially as you are in the frantic areas of Helltide and everything. So lots of Helltide changes, a lot of good feedback from players from PTR. Derek, thanks for walking through on that, but you're not done yet.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. As you guys know, like there is this is season 4 Loot Reborn, and part of Helltide includes the Iron Wolves, and some people have figured that out even before our blog on Tuesday, but we did want to talk a little bit about Season 4 and the Iron Wolves' participation in that, along with some cool things that are specific to seasonal characters for Season 4 as well.
Yeah. So again, as mentioned, the players who joined us in the PTR, or again caught all the various blog posts, will notice that the Iron Wolves are now a permanent part of the Helltides. They're fighting and dying alongside the players now, and they're
So
here
they're
to
going
stay.
all over the fucking map.
However, for our seasonal players, we have the Call of the Wolves seasonal activity, where players will get to spend a bit more time with the Iron Wolves and go on a bit of a journey with them to try and uncover the potential root cause behind these rising tides and uncover this mysterious phenomenon that's threatening to corrupt and consume the Iron Wolves from within. In addition to that, again, the Iron Wolves are in the
Suda
Helltides
the
with you.
Annual.
As players are fighting and dying alongside the Iron Wolves and the Helltides, you're also going to be earning your way through the Wolves' Honor reputation system. And this is seeing you progress your way through a collection of just super juiced rewards that are specifically tuned to overpower your leveling journey from level 1 to 100 and beyond. The main pillar for this reputation track was really
It's
pushing the
18
player's
levels.
powers forward. The player power forward. There you go. The player's power forward, and giving them early access to gear with juice stats, legendaries, materials, boss materials, and even a resplendent spark as like a cherry on top at the end.
We love the juice.
We do love that. But in the spirit of wait, there's more. Those are all like the gameplay related things. But we also have a couple of really cool cosmetics that you earn through the collective Call of the Wolf seasonal activity. So this is the Iron Wolf Mount Trophy, the little Iron Wolf banner.
I mean, that's the best
And,
one so far.
A little bit fast, but yeah. So the Iron Wolf Mount Trophy, we're doing it live here. That's earned from completing the there it is. You can get both of them. That's earned through completing the reputation track, and the Blood Maiden head is earned by completing the associated Call of the Wolf quest line.
Awesome. Yeah, those look really great. And of course, as you mentioned, Resplendent Sparks. There's,
I don't think
and
I'll use either
I
one,
know
but
there's one other
okay.
item that I know we wanted to talk about with this season specific, because it is specific for season 4. And
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder on that. There's so much to cover.
I know. Derek has like the largest list of items to kind of go through here. So
Yeah, so as mentioned before, on the seasonal team, we love our experiments, and I don't think a season would be one without some level of experiment. So with that, we
Agreed.
have the seasonal item, or as kind of like call it the seasonal toy, and that's the Profane Mind Cage. Yeah, so there it is. So the Profane Mind Cage is pretty cool in the sense that it's a guaranteed drop from the Hellborn, and when you consume it, I kind of like to imagine you're just like eating this demon brain.
Increases
when-
Helltide
yeah,
monster level
When
by
you consume
10.
it, for the next 60
Yeah.
minutes, the Helltide monsters are going to be boosted up to 10
Helltide
levels,
only
depending on the
lasts
world trigger
55
you
minutes,
consumed
though.
it in. And
Unless it's only in
you're
the
also
same
gonna
place
be
the whole time.
increasing their aberrant cinder drop rates. So, again, all tying this back to that leveling journey and like tempering and stuff, like this is a really fun item that lets you kind of put your build to a little bit more of a test in exchange for maximizing your Helltide efficiencies through, just one higher monster level means more
That's
XP
cool.
and stuff like that, and also just aberrant cinder drops too.
We
And-
also,
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we.
But that's
use
good for
the
leveling,
Tier
it's not
2,
good for
3,
after
and
adding.
4 XP. So
That's great. Yeah.
ties
Yeah.
super well. You can just get to blast down the game very quickly now.
Yep.
Yeah, and with the mind cage itself, like, because everyone's probably going like, well, that's a consumable. Like, how do people end up like obtaining additional ones of those, or can you get more of those throughout the season and everything?
Yeah, we want to be very generous with those. So one, they're a guaranteed drop from the Hellborn in World Tiers 3 and 4. But you can also use them in World Tiers 1 and 2, so if you want to like boost some level, alts and whatnot. You also get I think like a bucket of them through the Wolves Honor reputation. Like we crammed as many rewards as we could in there, so they will be in steady stream. So don't, again, in the spirit of like use it, don't hoard it. Definitely experiment and have fun with this thing, because it's a game. Have fun.
Yeah, so it's great. Like, if you want a little bit more of a challenge, a little bit better rewards as well, you can of course use your mind cage.
That's
and
nice.
that is exclusive for.
Because normally they're only 2 levels
players
higher than
in
you.
the season. So yeah, it's awesome to see. But yeah, thank you, Derek.
So
for
they'll
walking
end
us
up
through all
being
the changes
capped at
with Helltide, of
112
course, some
instead
of
of
the new
102.
season stuff with the Iron Wolves. And if
Which,
you're
okay.
a lore nerd, Iron Wolves, of course, are a very familiar faction within Diablo. They are from Diablo 2, Act 3. You could actually hire them as some of your mercenaries, or one of the mercenary options, though we know a lot of people with an Act 2 mercenary in Diablo 2 for the aura. But yes, cool. Thank you so much, Derek. And of course, we still have more to talk about. We're actually going to go back to Colin. And Colin is going to talk us through a little bit about the pit.
We're at 122.
Pit is a brand new feature within Season 4 and is now a permanent feature within Diablo 4.
We got like 35 minutes left.
And yeah, do you want to like give us a breakdown for people who may have not experienced the pit or may have not seen the stream beforehand?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, tell us about all the improvements that we're doing to the pit
Absolutely.
based off of feedback.
Yeah, so, something that players have asked for since we did a bunch of nerfs to the Nightmare Dungeons, if you recall, I forget what season it was, but we made tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons a lot easier so quick players could get through them. One of the big pieces of feedback we got was, okay, well, where's my measuring stick? The game is a power fantasy. It's about getting as much raw power as possible and just dominating, right? So
Yep.
if there's no place to push back, then everything's just a little bit too easy. So the Pit of the Artificer is our answer to that measuring stick. You're going to be able to push very deep into the pit There's a lot of levels. We were inspired by Abattoir of Zir, but to be very clear, you know, Abattoir of Zir was a special case in that each tier jump was just like brutal.
It was like exponential.
Yeah, it was like ridiculously hard every single tier, and it's like, you could only get to 7, which isn't very heroic or powerful, right? So we've taken a lot of the learnings from Abattoir of Zir. The pit goes very deep. There's many more tiers. It's much more gradual, so you can start pushing into it and getting some of these masterworking material rewards. And the pit is all about, you know, just blasting through monsters and the demons of hell, right? There's no negative modifiers. We're not CCing you a bunch. You know, this is really just a test of how powerful your build is. So from the PTR, we actually got feedback that it was way too easy because we added a ton of power through tempering, through the Codex of Power. It's just much easier to get a lot of those aspects online.
I mean,
So
I got
we've
to
taken a
20
look,
pretty easily.
and we've moved some of the masterworking material tiers around.
Actually, no, I think I got to
you
like
know, the tier
40.
1
I can't
masterworking
remember now.
materials only came from 1 to 20. We've moved that up 10 tiers. So tier 1 will come from 1 to 29. Tier 2 will come from 30 to 59, and tier 3 will be 60 plus. And what that does is it just makes the journey feel a little bit more rewarding, right? Like we saw in the PTR that people just like within the first 2 hours just blasted through all of it because they're so powerful. So we've just adjusted some of the rates there. So you have to push a little bit deeper. You have to optimize your build a little bit more. So those armor caps are things to watch out for, right? Where if you're over the armor cap, it's just a straight optimization to start thinking about how you want to replace some of that armor. We think that feels pretty good. And overall, we've increased the health and damage, or sorry, I should say increased the health on all monsters post level 100, both in the pit and nightmare dungeons. So the enemies should be pushing back on you a little bit more, right? You care a little bit more about utility, defense, outside of just one-shotting everything, right? So it sort of tests you a lot more. You know, and part of that feedback though that we've heard is that like nightmare dungeons don't feel very rewarding. The pit doesn't feel super rewarding post, you know, that 60 tier when you're getting those top-end masterworking materials. So we've done 2 major changes. One is we've added obols that scale with both of these tiers. So everything past tier 46 in Nightmare Dungeons and everything past tier 1 in the pit, actually, it just always gives you obols. You might ask, like, but obols are terrible. But, you know, again...
Why do I want obols, Colin?
I know, right? A big part of Season 4 was that, you know, we made the Gambler guarantee 925 legendaries at level 100. And those legendaries can roll greater affixes. So, you know, if you blow, you know, a ton of obols on two-handers, for example, those two-handed legendaries you're getting are the same as anywhere else in the game. So it's actually a huge efficiency boost to getting the items you're looking for.
So to be clear, you can get like some of the best items in the game from the obol vendor now.
Absolutely.
So that makes them a lot more.
And one thing that is also changing with
interesting.
obols is like, because you know when people pick up obols, they're like, oh, I've got my cap, and
probably
now I'm like,
someone's like
I'm like,
typing,
run back to town.
but Colin, the obol cap is fucked. So you know, like we've increased the obol cap substantially. So the amount of obols you get now is 2,500. You can hold up to. So you can just like go to the gambler and be like, give me everything, and you can just do that a couple of times.
So get your obols and hit the tables. pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And the items are incredible.
And just to like double down this for a second too, like one of the things that we also did as part of this, like when you use the enchanting feature in Diablo 4, you can't actually enchant off of an affix into a greater affix. Right.
Yes.
So when a good item drops for you in the base game, you can't try to like roll for greater affixes off the enchanting system. It's good for getting you to a stat you really need in a situation where an item didn't get you what you wanted. But now with the obols vendor, like those items, not only are they high power 925 and they have the chance to be legendary, of course, like the obols vendor always has. But you also have a chance to get greater affixes off those gambled items. So if you're looking for a particular pair of gloves, if you're looking for a particular helmet,
That's great.
you're saying, I really want a greater affix version of cooldown reduction on my helmet. Right, like now it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna take my 2,000 obols, I'm gonna go to the vendor, I'm just gonna gamble, and try to get that one helmet.
Yeah.
Like now I have a chance to really do that. And this is a way for you to like, getting more drops and such inside the pit is one thing, but giving you more choice when you get out of a pit run, I think is very, very valuable.
It's gonna feel way better.
Absolutely.
I'm down. I like it.
Another change we made was to Glyph XP. We got a bunch of feedback.
Yes.
It's like, God, what the hell? Nightmare Dungeons. So we've increased the Glyph XP by 25%.
Increased?
Faster leveling.
Nice.
We've also scaled the amount of rune shards, which is the pit currency to get into the pit, with Nightmare Dungeon. So you can create sort of a positive feedback loop if you're really strong, you're really powerful, you're hitting those tier 100s. In the Nightmare Dungeons, you're getting tons of pit keys that you can then translate into the pit and just get lots of runs and lots of masterwork in there.
Yeah, so a lot of feedback from Nightmare Dungeons. People were saying like, hey, are we planning on making any changes to that glyph XP? And
Yep.
so there
That's
are,
nice.
We sure did. We actioned on it for sure. So and then there's funny enough, there's also even in the season journey, I believe there's also like changes to the hashes themselves where you can actually use that to boost even like glyph XP. It's also part of that.
I like that
with
too.
The season journey. So very cool stuff that we have.
One more. Sorry.
there's more.
I have this list, but then I don't actually read it.
But then
It's
he
just like a
doesn't
prompt. Yeah,
actually
sorry. The one other thing that
Always
we
the
did
best.
was we heard a bunch of feedback that players were dying at the end of the pit because we have this like shadow boss that sometimes comes in and throws a wrench in what you're doing.
Yeah, it's douchey.
And you know, as much as I push for learn to play, you know, our encounter
I
designers.
like that good
Yeah,
philosophy
yeah.
person.
Ruthless.
Absolutely.
Take
it was
that,
hilarious.
hardcore players.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah, isn't it fun to die after you killed the boss? Yeah, so our encounter designer did an amazing job cleaning up a lot of those affixes after we killed that boss, and the arena should be clear now after we killed that boss.
As chat says, get good. But yeah, we saw that a lot, and you know, if you're a hardcore player, that
I
would
think it
have
happened to
been
me
a
once. It was
tragic
fucking
loss to your
sad.
character.
I prefer the word
Yeah,
hilarious.
some designers.
Imagine
like
if it was a hardcore character.
God.
Yeah, just watching
That would be
streams and
disappointing.
reactions from that. So awesome. So a lot of changes coming for the pit. Pit is of course a new feature within Diablo 4 permanently, and you can experience that in eternal and seasonal realms. And of course we have some updates.
the only thing
to
different for
the
season
boss ladder, because the boss ladder itself
is
is
that,
changing
Mind Cage
pretty
and the
significantly. We
wolves.
talked a little bit about like how you can get additional
Everything else is
materials
the same.
in other places that
Which,
Derek
like,
had mentioned.
you think about
but,
it,
Colin
like
has
our
additional,
initial reaction, that's
like,
disappointing.
points
But
that he wants to bring about
you think about it
boss
more,
ladder, because we got a lot of
there are
feedback
so
on
many
that,
good
and,
changes in this
there's
season
some new
that
changes to
it
the
doesn't even
price
matter.
point.
Like, yeah, so
there's
we added Endariel,
so
the
many
best
ways
lesser evil.
to play new builds. Even
he's dunking me.
Yeah, just dunks me with
playing the
words all
same
day.
builds that I've
Yeah.
played before,
So,
that you can make them all
obviously has
more
come
powerful.
Back. She's incredibly fun to fight. The encounter
Great.
design team killed it. And you know, on top of Endariel, we've added a new tier to the boss ladder called Tormented Bosses. So these are much higher level than level 200 bosses.
They have a
sort
19
of pinnacle
health pots.
aspirational bosses to take
What
down.
the fuck do you
And,
need
what
19
we've done
health
here
pots
is we
for?
heard a bunch of feedback that it required 5 times the amount of boss materials, including some rare pit material, to summon these, and
Yeah,
5 times
That's
the
way
reward.
too much.
That didn't really feel like the right amount
No,
of reward
that was
efficiency for
stupid.
taking on something that was challenging, so we've nerfed the cost. It's now 3x the amount
3.
of boss material and 5x the reward, so you can get some pretty big efficiency wins there,
Great.
especially if you're crushing them.
Yeah, I didn't even try one once. I
So
never had enough
that's
materials
feeling
for
pretty
anything.
Good, we think.
In
we
a week.
also heard a lot of feedback that it's tedious to do the same activity over and over and over to summon some of these things, right? So it's like, I want to summon Penitent Knight, or I want to do the Beast of Nice. I know you and I have done that one, like, you know,
Yeah, every
hundreds of
build I've
times.
chosen in a season
Yeah, yeah.
requires the Beast of Ice. And
It's like, I guess
I'm
I'm
just
doing
stuck in
another
Nightmare
Nightmare
Dungeon
Dungeon.
hell forever. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, we made it better. A lot of our random, monsters and activities and things like that. So, elites, whisper caches, treasure goblins, world bosses, Hellborn, to name a few. We're all going to start randomly dropping these boss materials. So,
Great.
You're not necessarily forced into doing one exact activity. It's still going to be the absolute best way to get some of this boss material. But as long as you're blasting, you're just going to be getting a lot of these materials ambiently.
Blasting,
Trade,
baby.
just sort of cash in
That's
on
all
your
anybody
heart's
wants to
desire.
do is
And
blast.
it just makes the
I
game feel
just
more
want to
flexible. It
blast.
Sort of enables you to play a little bit more on how you want to play, while still keeping the
Yeah,
experience
Colin's
fresh.
the best.
So we think that's going to be a pretty big win.
That's huge.
Yeah. To jump back into the Torment bosses, just because I'm going to jump around a little bit, we heard a bunch of feedback, especially from Widijo. Hopefully he's watching. Is
There's
the
no
bosses?
way we just watching right
I know,
now.
probably not. Yeah, it's not very interesting. We did some tuning to make sure that the tormented versions have some more parity, right? It was sort of like in a scenario where like one of the ladder bosses was just like dead easy, didn't really match the difficulty of the rest, and that's important because we give you one guaranteed Resplendent Spark one time for defeating any of these. So one step closer to getting that uber unique that's not just a raw drop. of your choice, which is pretty awesome. And then something else, speaking of Resplendent Sparks, we're adding one to Uber Lilith. So the first time you kill Uber Lilith, you're also going to get another Resplendent Spark.
That season 4 is
So
the
now
season that
brings us
learn how to fight Lilith.
3 opportunities of being able to earn yourself a Resplendent Spark. We heard one from Derek at the end.
And then the
of
4th is
season.
that you have to hope that you get an Uber you need to drop, and you hit
doing
it.
that within the season.
Then you salvage it. Go
The Echo of Lilith, and of course one with your first Tormented boss as well. So additional opportunities.
It sure would be nice.
Still salvage any.
It sure would be
gear that you do
nice.
happen to find, and you can actually earn a Resplendent Spark down.
So
It
that
sure
means
would
if
be
you do all of
nice.
these, then you get an Uber.
If you could get
actually
4,
change that to
and at
whatever
least
one
you
you
get
want.
to start.
Yes,
You get one. Like
And then
everybody can
something
get
else,
one.
on
in
the
the season.
Uber Uniques is that
Like why not?
I'm just laughing because I didn't realize this, but chat's calling out with our tooltip that we showed. We have 200 plus Resplendent Sparks.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
happens when
We're just really lucky
We're
and
just,
good.
yeah,
Out the gate.
yeah.
That's how I get them.
Let me tell you
Isn't that
guys
how
about
get them?
dev tools.
Yeah, that's actually my account online. So.
Oh yeah, there we go. Nice.
On the Uber Uniques, we heard a bunch of feedback that it feels like a chore to have to do, the penance at night into Varshan, into Dunitorial, just for a chance at an Uber Unique, right? We've experienced that ourselves, right? It's like, God, I got to do all this stuff to fight the boss that's going to actually drop something that I care about. Greater Graphics has helped that because there's some variation to the uniques you're going to get. But for Uber uniques, we've actually added a small chance, a little bit lower than Duriel, to all of the ladder bosses, and they're going to have a chance to drop an Uber unique as well. So while you're grinding through this ladder, every single boss you kill is going to have a chance.
So there is the opportunity.
It's not exactly the same as Duriel and Duriel. We should do like a combo and Dariel.
A lot of Uriels.
We think that's going to make it feel a lot better.
So yeah, a lot of changes coming with boss ladder and changes based off of PPR feedback that we saw.
Yep.
Plus just overall changes for season 4 that we were planning.
That happened to Mike, Andy.
It's more opportunities for players to actually experience it. Of course, the boss so awesome.
They got to turn his mic back on.
And I know we wanted to, before we jump into Q&A, because we're getting towards the end of our updates for season 4. Mr. Adam Jackson wants to talk a little bit about the season journey. This is actually something really cool.
One last thing. Us over on Class Designer, we're really passionate about this and we're excited for it. So the season journey. So we really want to kind of juice the rewards and make the season journey more exciting. And so what we went and did was, when you're going through the season journey for every class, you're actually going to be getting a preset, curated amount of legendaries as you're going through that are targeted toward a specific build. So we chose a build for every class in season 4, and we're going to change it around in future seasons. Please give us feedback on this, but we think it'll be pretty cool. But you're basically going to get like close to a completed build when it comes to opening those caches. They're guaranteed targeted legendaries to build a specific fantasy for every class. I think we have a video to show what they're going to be for every class in season 4.
Fractured Winterglass Sorceress.
Maybe there. So Barbarian here, you can see we're going to be giving you a bunch of legendaries related to Dust Devils. The Druid, we're going to be giving you basically a pulverized build, which is pretty cool. Next is the Necromancer. Of course, everybody's going to be playing minions, so we gave you a bunch of minion-focused legendaries. This should be pretty awesome. And then next is the Sorceress. We actually have a cool new legendary coming into the game for Incinerate, which you'll see here.
Yeah,
it splits up. So we were giving you an Incinerate build on the Sorceress. And then the Rogue, we're giving you one target toward Barrage. So again, kind of the point of this is that, if you don't really know what you want to play, or you really want to just go through a season journey and try out something before you go to a build that you really want to do, you have a foundation of something more complete to start with, which we're pretty excited
So
about.
leveling with the
And with
Sorceress
Codex
is the
change
way to
now,
go.
you also get to kill all those
Incinerate.
items are actually dropping out of the season journey caches. You get to kind of keep those. They're all going to your codex. You use that build for the entirety of your leveling process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Awesome. So lots of changes coming this season. Sorry, my mic died halfway through there, so I had to do a quick mic swap as we were playing.
We were free from
Also, Joe Pipor's back. Hi, Joe. Derek is now over here. So if people are confused of like what's going on, we are playing musical chairs today. That is also a new feature coming in season 4. I'm just kidding. So a lot of changes. Season 4, pretty huge. Is by far the biggest season
By far.
for Diablo 4 yet. And I know we wanted to jump into Q&A. I did want to bring up one thing as well.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which is, this is a change that will be represented in, by the way, patch notes are coming out immediately after this stream. So,
Oh, geez, okay.
so that's one thing. So yeah, people can check out patch notes immediately after this stream.
Please enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed writing it.
Writing it and
Over
reviewing it and
over
editing it.
again,
And I wouldn't, based off of the size of the patch notes, I wouldn't be surprised if we do have a few things that might be missing that we'll probably like have to post add if as we're kind of going through it, just because it's massive in terms of size, as people saw from PTR, and now it's just even
It
larger.
represents a few different teams like effort trying
Yeah.
to do this too.
Yeah, so, but patch notes will be up. One thing in the patch notes that I did want to bring up is, and this is a thing that's coming in Season 4, is for players that want to change their hair on their characters themselves, they can actually go to the wardrobe now and actually
Great.
be able to do it, which is a nice, like, good quality of life.
It's about
feature.
time.
Heard a lot of people go like, hey, I kind of want to, I made that character a while ago, especially like an Eternal character or something like that. I'd like to be able to change that around. Yeah, now I have that flexibility of being able to do so, which is
That's
actually
good.
really cool. So,
It's a nice
we're going to jump into
QOL.
Q&A as usual, as we always do. We will start off with a question. This is actually something that's been a popular topic that a lot of people have been talking about since PTR, and of course even this week with the blog itself. But
Don't leave me in suspense.
I know. I think we have the question. There it is. What does this mean for season powers in the future?
Oh, just what Season 4 is, like
Yeah.
the nature of Season 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sure. So, yeah, Season 4 is Season 4, as I mentioned before, is like an opportunity for us to kind of like lift up a lot of aspects of the game that we think are really important. Diablo is a game about killing monsters and getting loot. And as I said before, getting loot, we need to make sure it feels at least as good as killing monsters, right? Like, it's extremely important that this part feels good. And we took a lot of our development effort and put it against that goal as part of this release. And there were other parts of the game that we lifted up at the same time, like the various changes that we talked about for Helltide, for example. You know, the myriad new tempering recipes and things like that. There's lots of things we did, I think, as part of the release, just make the base experience of Diablo 4 more fun, right? So I'm really excited we're able to do that in Season 4. Thinking about what the future holds, we always want to make sure that with every season, you know, we are adapting to what we think the game needs at that time. We think it's going to make for a better experience.
At that
overall.
time,
We love the idea of seasonal powers.
a year in advance.
We've learned a lot of really, really great
Or
stuff.
at least 6
from the days
months.
of Barber,
Like,
all the
they're
way through
working
the
on
Banner of Powers we
season
got in Season 2,
6
and all
right
the Seneschal and Construct stuff we had in
in some
Season 3.
fashion.
We have lots of big ideas for the future. So, but you know, you will see seasonal powers again in the future.
and
different themes and
there's
mechanics as we
definitely a
go.
team working on
That's,
season
you know,
6,
that's kind
which
of
is
our
the
promise to you.
expansion.
And with the things we
season
have in terms
5
of like the
will
Iron
be
Wolves quest line and the various rewards you
the
get,
last
changes
season
you make to
before the
season journey,
expansion,
so, like,
because this
giving
goes
you,
from
like, all
May
those
to
themed items,
at least
those,
May,
like, those,
June,
those various,
July,
like, aspect
at
builds
least to
together as we
July, then
progress through.
August,
We wanna keep
September,
building upon these
October,
mechanical
and then
elements as well at the
November
same
we
time.
have
It can continue to help lift up the
an
experience.
expansion.
So yeah, you will be returning seasonal powers in the future. You know, but with every season, we want to make sure that we're doing what we think is like lifting the game up the most, the things that we think are most important at that time.
Awesome.
I mean, the season power is master
Question from
working
our-
and tempering and greater
I'll
affixes.
bounce between
That's
some
the season
questions
power,
from chat and from our forums, because we did have a thread up in our forums about
which will
specific
persist
questions,
at
but
least
this one's
until
from the
they
forums.
decide
This
they
is
want to
from
change
Avalon.
something.
They're asking if because season 3 actually ran longer and season 4 itself had a PTR, will season 4 actually be a shortened season, or will it still be a standard size season? They weren't sure how PTR is actually affecting the timeline.
So PTR is not as impactful for the timing here. I think it's a slightly shorter season. I think it's like 1 week shorter or something. I need to look at the date.
Yeah, and I will note, like, PTR, the reason why season 3 ran longer was because we wanted to make sure that we could get that PTR. This was our first PTR, so there was a little bit more effort needed to get that out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So like I think about like when I'm thinking about the future and like what PTRs look like and want things to be like, it's not that like having a PTR automatically means that everything is going to take longer to deliver. But there was a lot of things we had to set up for the first time for PTR for season 4, and I'm really glad we did, because as I think you've seen, there's a lot of things we learned going through the process.
It gave us the time to iterate and use the feedback too,
Yeah.
which we did a lot of things on.
Should do it every
Question
season.
from Blake Darko CS. Will you guys think about maybe a potential different beam color for items with greater affixes?
So I know we talked about this for a while.
Yeah, I think that's something we're definitely going to keep an eye on. Like right now, we think that the little dot dots, or I should say huge dots, the huge stars on them, are doing a pretty good job. But that's something that we also
I think that's
allow to
sufficient.
play, and we're super open to feedback and seeing how these new big stars.
It's got a different sound and it's got the stars on it.
The change, especially the
that's
changes in
sufficient.
the inventory, because now you can actually identify them in your inventory, and everything is really big.
And these also roll on unique, so there's a little bit of work that we'll need to figure out. But again,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can get greater graphics on unique items as well.
Yeah, so it's like the beam color gets a little confusing there. So something that we'll monitor for sure, and of course something that we've seen from players and a lot of people bringing that specifically up. Fire Dragon Dad says that the Season 4 update's going to retro into existing Eternal. So everything we talked about today, with the exception of the Iron Wolf questline stuff, is actually present in the Eternal realm. So players like the Codex power changes, everything like that will be there. I know there are a lot of questions related to the Codex changes, especially for Eternal players. And just to clarify, if you have aspects in your inventory and your stash, they'll take whatever your highest roll of that specific aspect, and that will become your new best Codex entry when Season 4 does start. You may need to log on to specific characters on Eternal to at least for us to be able to check your inventory, but the stash I know will automatically move over there. And same thing for I know we get a lot of questions about items on Eternal. Those will be marked as legacy items specifically, because obviously we've changed a lot of affixes and everything.
And those items you can't craft on those items either at that point. You can't temper those items, and you can't masterwork those items. But they'll still retain the item upgrade state that they have in the blacksmith before.
Exactly.
You can still use them.
It doesn't mean when you log on, all your gear is suddenly unusable. It's just marked as legacy, and you won't be able to use tempering or masterwork.
It's a great stepping off point to getting some new items that could have greater affixes and other things that could make it even more powerful.
A question that we have actually from the forums. This is from Iggy. With the itemization rework, is there what is the next big thing you guys are actually looking at potentially wanting to really work on within the team? I don't know if we want to play our cards too early.
Well, I think
We're working on things.
We're working on
Expansion.
all kinds of stuff, everybody. But no, I think one thing we want to continue to work on, I think you see as we're thinking more about the end game experience, a lot when we launched Diablo 4, we thought of end game really as a journey from really from 50 to 100, the things you're doing along the way, and getting all of your Preparagon glyphs and leveling those glyphs up, and diving deeper into Nightmare dungeons, and going and eventually confronting Lilith. That was what we kind of imagined, or we thought that end game would feel like, and that was a good thing for us to build on. I think we saw that a lot more players were looking for endgame explicitly at level 100. That was when they wanted a lot more things to open up. And we've made a lot of changes recently, trying to create more gameplay around that part of the experience, between the itemization changes and the crafting changes, and also the introduction of tormented bosses, and of course the Pay the Artificer. So I think that we know that there's more opportunities for us to build on these things, right? I think you've heard me say this before, but a lot of the things we're doing in Season 4 specifically really are done to build a new framework, for how endgame sort of functions. The things that drive a player forward, the things that get them excited, and the content that they engage with along the way as well, right? We want to make sure that that players are having a really fun time, a rewarding time while they're playing Diablo 4, and they can find opportunities to be appropriately challenged as they go through the experience as well. We think there's more opportunities for us to kind of grow and expand the offerings of things that players can have access to, things they can go experience.
Good.
At that stage of the game.
Let's see it.
Awesome. Question from Old Dudes New Games.
Dudes.
I love these names. They're so good. What about Codex resetting when swapping characters? That was actually just an issue on PTR. When you swapped characters and stuff like that. Sorry.
Yeah, when you swap, then you use the boost NPC. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was not a thing that you will experience with Season 4, and so that's not a common thing or a normal thing that's supposed to actually happen. It just was a bug that we had in PTR. There's a lot of questions here about the Mind Cage, and I just want to maybe clarify with the players. Opus Crocus says, if you consume more than one, does the Mind Cage stack or does the timer reset?
Timer reset, I think.
Timer
Timer resets,
resets.
okay. And then in regards to, again, this is from Optics, do Mind Cages trigger for a single player or your whole group if you're grouped up?
Single player.
Just a single player. Yeah, it's a personal thing. Okay. All right, so
Interesting.
clarity around the mind cages,
Yeah.
because I know we've had a lot of people ask specifically.
And we want
about
feedback on this, by the way, too. So when you get a chance to play with the mind cage during the season, like, tell us what you think. We want to know.
This is from Nuku Games.
Sure,
Do
Joe.
unique items get a stat/functionality boost since tempered legendaries are just straight up better? And is it generally not worth it to equip a unique item after the patch?
Yeah, I mean, I think Adam can speak to some of these changes if you wanted to jump in, but we've done a pass on all the unique items. We've done things like Razor Blade, I think has 4 Thorns affixes, and we changed what the legendary power is.
Yeah. By the way, that was a big question we got from people in
Oh, was it?
PTR because they were like, hey,
What about Razor Blade? We heard a lot. No, we
in the
had to
patch-
change Razor Blade.
Yeah,
but it'll be cool.
it's actually in the patch notes, and yeah, it's a lot of thorns.
Razor Blade's
Yeah.
hilarious. We
But
still love it.
it's hilarious.
I wanted to just have like 1 so you can't miss on Masterwork.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah,
might
what
be
I'll
too
say
crazy.
though about the unique legendary item power level, I suppose, is that we knew when we were making these tempering changes and updating those that we wanted legendaries because they kind of have like they have kind of different identities right now in the game, and so we're still figuring out what we want to do with uniques long term. But the idea is that like legendary items or items really, they have a journey, and you're working on them, and there's a story to them, and you get it. And it's not like a one-stop shop. You're done, kind of like how they were before. Uniques, a part of their identity is that like you get a unique and it's freaking awesome, really powerful and very exciting, and you have it and you're done with it. And so we're keeping this discrepancy of like what their purposes are in the game for now, and kind of seeing how it goes. We did take a look at some uniques, but we didn't like do a whole pass of like every single unique now has 5 affixes or something like that. Like we wanted them to be a little bit different and different identities. So we do kind of expect that uniques may be less prevalent than they were before. We still believe though that a lot of uniques are really key for various builds, and so you're still going to want them. But you're not going to want like a unique in every single slot on your character now because they're just clearly always better, right? Sometimes some builds will want more uniques, some will want less, and we want to kind of see how that plays first before making sweeping changes. Some obvious roads we could take is like adding crafting to uniques. What if you could temper them? What if you could do these other things, right? Like we know that that's a thing, and we may do that in the future, but we're kind of evaluating this world where it's not clearly always you only get one or the other, and we kind of want to see how that goes first before making any big changes.
Yeah, and the fixed nature sort of has
I'm okay
you
with that.
consider it's part of your optimization puzzle. Right?
Yes.
Like, well, I'm going to give up some tempering affixes to get this unique, for example.
Yeah,
in-
it's
in-
got to
in
be
my
like
chest slot,
very
for example. We sort of
crucial
want
to
to see
the
where that
build.
goes. Like we think that that's fun, and we think that the
Otherwise,
excitement of a unique is
925
those fixed
legendaries are
stats
better.
When you see the item on the ground,
But
like,
it
that's-
should be
that's
that
the
way,
unique
like-
item. I can just equip it. I don't even have to work. on
You,
it.
you
It's just
shouldn't
like
need
that.
to have
So
6 uniques
Awesome.
equipped
And
in
then
order to
I
have
know,
a
by the way,
super
did we
powerful
talk
build.
about masterworking, or not masterworking,
We
but
did talk
did.
about Masterwork.
A
we
lot.
did talk.
We've done it twice on stream.
did we talk about groups and with the pit?
I didn't write it
Yeah,
down and I didn't
yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of feedback that it sucks to help someone with their pit run and just not get any masterworking material. It's like, well, why am I here? So what we've done is we've made it so that the person who opens the pit is going to get 100% of the masterworking materials. Previously, I think it was split maybe across all players. And what we've done now is that the person who opens it gets 100%, and then everyone who helps defeat the pit gets 50% of that target pool. So we're trying to walk that line where group play isn't just like totally overwhelmingly efficient, but you're still getting something for helping each other go through those pit levels.
Yeah, we heard a lot of feedback about players going like, it feels a little unrewarding to
Yeah,
and
I
so
mean-
there were some changes.
In
from-
general,
wanna take a
I think
group
there's
into the
still
pit?
some tension with how players feel about
What's the point,
efficiency of
though?
groups versus the efficiency of solo
I wanna
players.
go
Like,
destroy the
awesome
pit by
and things like
myself.
that. These are things we're thinking about. We have ideas on, but we want to continue to get feedback, particularly with these changes. And kind
I'm
see
more
how
of a
things play
solo
out.
self-found kind of dude, though.
Awesome.
So
We're getting questions about, hey, are there any updates on social features and things like that coming to D4?
No.
Don't know if we have anything to share right now. Right, it's something obviously that the team is very well. You guys ask all the time, so we're very very aware of it. And the team is been looking at it, and once we have more to share, we'll end up sharing it with you guys. But for right now, we don't have any update.
Yeah.
There's questions about it. If there's plans of adding maybe potential leaderboards to the pit or anything, or is that going to be something
Why?
that's just exclusively on the gauntlet?
I think the idea of adding leaderboards to other types of content over time makes sense. Could be pretty fun, But right now, we really want to see how the pit plays on its own. The trials feature on Challenge Ladder, like we really want that to be a place where players can, or it's a place we really want players to be able to like, go and compete in a very fixed environment, a very extremely fair environment, which is like what we really prioritize as part of the release. The pit is pretty variable run to run, so that makes it a little more complicated. It doesn't mean that we would never add it. I think that there's a clear indicator that it'd be pretty fun to have this slightly looser leaderboard associated with a feature like this. But we're going to see how things play out. We'll be thinking about how we can add more competitive features like that to the game over time.
Question from Elro here. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but when
Elro here, I think that is actually. Yeah.
Nailed it.
It's like an elven name, right?
Since not everyone actually experienced PTR, because PTR itself was on PC Battle.net, but they were asking when tempering, can you keep previous rolls?
Can you keep previous rolls?
Like the enchanting system.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, we don't have the functionality to let you keep the roll. Right now, if you're going to commit to re-rolling, you're going to lose that
You're
previous
committing
one.
to re-rolling.
Yeah, it's sort of like the blacksmith is hammering on that item and unlocking different aspects of the weapon. You sort of lose what you previously had. But we're open to feedback, right? It's a completely new feature. We really want to hear how it's playing, and ultimately what we want is a fun crafting feature. So,
that's interesting.
Really valuable.
We'll take two more.
I would like that better than
LOL. Is tempering going to allow changes for the skills?
Actually, that would be
skill
pretty
type,
good.
Like maybe lightning hydras, or
because you can break an item pretty
changes to
easily
Blizzard where
with
it's a rain of
tempering.
fire or something like that.
That's pretty cool.
Honestly, anything an Apex can do.
Yeah.
There's open season of things we could potentially do in the future. Yeah, not in season 4, but possibly in the future.
Awesome. And this is actually from a.
There's a lot of space to grow.
There is.
Utilities category. There's a lot of space
utility.
for some interesting things potentially. Yeah.
There's a lot of questions in here about like additional character customization options and stuff like that coming in the future. It is like something the team is always looking at, adding additional things for players to have more choice of what they want to do, especially as they're creating characters, and of course being able to obtain those. Like even just some things in season 4 of being able to get additional, cosmetic things for your mount and everything like that is something that the team is most definitely looking.
Yeah, we care about this a great deal. I think one thing that's very interesting about Diablo 4, or a problem that we have that's very specific, right, is there are actually quite a few cosmetics for players to earn out on bosses and things, like throughout the game. Like there's lots of
But
things
nobody
players
knows
can
what they
collect
are.
cosmetically in the game. But it's really hard to know that drops off that thing
Yeah.
in Diablo 4. Like you can go
It's
and you can
impossible.
fight like a world boss 50 times and not have a drop occur for you, right? Like then eventually you get your special horse, like, oh, okay, it is here, but you have no idea. It's kind of like it's harder to know exactly where to grind. We're actually talking about that a bit on the dev side. See if like there's more ways we can kind of like make it clear where certain things can be found, which I think could be really fun. But I think that there's work we can do there, and also there's still work we can do about just trying to get more cool looks into the game. So we've been talking a lot more with the various teams inside Diablo 4, and there's a broad agreement we want to do more cool stuff to you guys, and more cool stuff for players to find and pick up and equip and feel like it's really exciting to get that thing. One thing we're doing like already is we're like as we develop more uniques, we're trying to make sure that we have like more unique appearances to go with all of them. We have like a lot of really fun ideas. We have to constantly like wrestle with like, all right, we only have like this X many swords, but like we have like this many ideas for swords, and we want to like try to get this in the game. We want to wait till we have the artwork for a sword. We're usually trying to make sure that we've got a fun toy.
Yeah,
that we
more
get.
transmogs would be
But
better.
we're going to make sure we're trying to get more of that stuff in game as well. So there's just even more artwork to the unique system for players to collect.
Awesome. So
That would be
that's
great.
all the time we got right here for today. We went over all the changes, or not actually. There's even more changes. There's actually more changes in the patch notes.
ETR
we can't go through every single line
was
of the
great.
patch notes over a stream, so you guys can
Do it
actually
every
check out the
season.
patch notes. Those will be
Do
available
it
on Diablo4.com.
3 weeks
We always have
before
those
the launch
listed
of the
on
next
our
season,
specific
or
patch notes
4.
page, and those will be
Do
live
4
immediately
weeks, and then you
after
got
the
3
stream.
weeks to
Season
make
4
changes.
Loot Reborn starts on May 14th.
And do
This
it
is
every
across
season.
all platforms.
For a week
on
is fine.
PC, Xbox, PlayStation.
Because
And
then-
of course, if
then,
you're an
like,
Xbox,
you've got
and
a
PC
bunch of
Game Pass
people-
user, you can also play Diablo 4 now.
You got a whole
via
bunch of
PC
people
Battle.net
that
or
are,
on your Xbox.
why is this music on
Lots
again?
of
Fuck.
opportunities to play, and of course Steam. Can't forget Steam. Steam is also on there for PC.
That's
So
also a platform.
that is
Just like you
also
play
a
Diablo
platform.
4.
We're everywhere.
I had this
Any
music
other
on the whole
platforms
time.
you wanna shout out,
Stupid.
or-
We're everywhere.
Because I fucking switched
Yeah,
screens.
Just everywhere.
Anyways.
But again,
It's not that
thanks to
bad.
everyone for tuning in. We're looking forward to you guys jumping into Season 4 Loot Reborn. Yeah, we'll see you guys in game. And thanks again.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
See you guys.
Probably won't, but okay, great. Thanks, guys. Nice work. A lot of good things coming in season 4, and they made. Let's see. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things that I identified that would be super nice to change. All of the things that are like critical, crucial, they changed. What didn't they change? Tempering and master working material cost too high, mainly because nope, actually they changed that too. Affix rolls don't feel random. I don't think they changed that one. That's one I put in the wrong spot. That one they didn't fix. Rare items are useless. They didn't fix that. The rare items and blue and yellows are useless now, at least until they said that they're going to make changes in the future, but who the fuck knows when that'll be. But okay, fine. You can now clearly see that your items have greater affixes, and you get more materials for salvaging legendary. So realistically, you could just skip all blues and all yellows now. You could. I think I still pick up yellows, but just because of the opportunity to get Veiled Crystal. But we'll see how those Veiled Crystal costs and drop rates feel once the season starts. We'll see. Navigating the codex is a bit clunky. Would be great if we search the codex. I think you can search the codex, actually. But I don't think they changed that structure, which it's not the end of the world. The ability to reset tempers, whether it's masterwork resetting or requires a material that drops in the pit, they didn't change that. So you can still brick an item, and you can't reset it, which kind of sucks, but I don't know. If we truly are getting drops that are valuable to the build that we're playing in a higher frequency, then okay, fine. It's fine. It's fine. But let's us take a look at the patch notes now. Let's do that. Rip. Let's take a look at these patch notes. Updates from the public test realm. Let's see how long this takes. I gotta piss, and I want to get into play my fucking badass sorceress. We'll see. We appreciate all the feedback our players provided us during our public test run for Season 4 Luke Reborn. The following section highlights key bug fixes and feedback adjustments. This is going to be like forever long. Can you read that? Jesus Christ. Do I want to commit to this right now? This is going to take like an hour. And I just want to play the game. Holy fuck-a-moly. Holy fuck-a-moly, man. Should we start at the bottom? Dude, it took me a minute just to get down there, scrolling down. There's no longer a chance for masterworking to fail. Yes, the masterwork animation has been removed for non-milestone ranks. I'm happy with that. The tempering results screen now shows the result affix, its role, and the affix range. That's good. Various UI improvements for tempering and masterworking experience. Added multiple tiers of masterworking material caches that transmute far more materials than were previously available. That's nice. A visual indication has been added to the imprint UI, which indicates which legendary affixes are currently equipped. Nice. You can now search the term equip or equipped within Codex of Power. Oh, to list currently equipped affixes. Very nice. Can you filter? Like, let me put a filter on that so that I'm only looking at that all the time and I set which ones I see. That's the way to clean up that clutter and the clunkiness of navigating the codex. We've added an inventory icon to indicate items that have at least one greater affix. Nice. When items with greater affixes drop in game, they will also have the same icon to indicate they possess a greater affix. Beautiful. Held tied in the pit. Like, all of this is... I feel like we do another video for this. Come back to it. Because I want to play, and I want to pee. I think let's do that. Or maybe I just read this, like... I mean, who the fuck is going to watch this video of me reading the patch notes? Nobody. Absolutely nobody is. So I think let's do that. I'm going to pee, and then we'll come back and we'll play some fucking Darth Sidious sorceress. Darth Sidious's daughter, Rey. Granddaughter, Rey. Even though Rey doesn't have badass lightning powers. Anyways, I'll be back. We'll do that.